Good afternoon, everyone. In today's class, we are going to study about levels of memory and types of long-term memory. So, in yesterday's class, we have studied in details about the stage model, and I told you that there are other models of processing as well, like how we process memory. So, in today's class, we will be learning about levels of processing memory and also types of long-term memory. So, let us start with our class. The levels of processing view was proposed by Craig and Lockhart in 1972. So, this view suggests that the processing of new information that we collect relates to the manner in which it is perceived, analyzed, and understood. Okay, and in turn, it determines the extent to which it will eventually be retained. So, it depends on how we collect that information, how we perceive it, how do we analyze it, and how do we understand it. Okay, so it is related to that. So this new view has undergone a lot of revisions, but then the core concept remains the same. Okay, so let us examine it in detail. Craig and Lockhart propose that it is possible to analyze the incoming information at more than one level. Okay, so it can be processed in different levels. One may analyze it in terms of its physical or structural features. So let us look at what are physical and structural features. For example, one might attend only to the shape of letters in a word, say cat. So suppose the letter cat is written and it is italicized and it has a color pink. So if you are paying attention to only the structural features, then you will only see that the word is italicized and it's pink in color, or whether it is capital or small. Okay, so you will only focus on those features. Okay, so this is the first and shallowest level of processing. So when you are not focusing on the meaning of the word and nothing else, but only the structure of the letter, that this is italicized and it is pink in color, it is small letter. So if you are focusing on only those things, then you are only focusing on the structural features. And this is the first and shallowest level of processing. Okay, and at an intermediate level, one might consider and attend to the phonetic sounds that are attached to the letters, and therefore the structural features are transformed into at least one meaningful word, say a word cat that has three specific letters. Okay, so you will just know that it is pronounced as cat, nothing more than that. You will not further think that, oh, it has four legs, this is how a cat looks. All those things you won't go to that level of processing. You will just uh, look at the structural features, how does it look, italicized or small letters, and then you will focus on how it is being pronounced, but nothing more than that. Okay, analyzing information at these two levels produces memory that is fragile and is likely to decay rather quickly. So it is a very fragile memory and it can decay very quickly. Okay, but then there is another level of processing. This is the deepest level of processing. Okay, so in order to ensure that the information is retained for a longer period, it is important that it gets analyzed and understood in terms of its meaning. So in order to retain a particular memory, we have to analyze and understand it. Okay, so for example, this cat example only. So you see the word cat, you have seen the structural features, you know how to pronounce it, but then you will think about it. Okay, that it is an animal that has furs and has four legs, it has a tail and is a mammal. So that is how you are going to remember the word cat and what does it mean. Okay, then only it is going to be stored in your long-term memory, and later on when you are asked about the word cat, you will be able to remember it. So when you were a child, when you were taught uh, the names of different animals, then pictures were shown, and you are also told and given informations about how does a cat look, and all the details were given so that you remember, okay, so that you analyze it and draw a meaning out of it, and it gets stored in your long-term memory. Okay, so to sum up, analyzing information in terms of its structural and phonetic features amounts to shallower processing, while encoding it in terms of meaning it carries, that is your semantic encoding, is the deepest processing level that leads to memory that resists forgetting considerably. Okay, so when you are just focusing on structural and phonetic features, then it is shallower level of processing. But when you are focusing on the meaning it carries, that is the semantic encoding, then this is the deepest level of processing. So now you are familiar with the word cat. Suppose there is another word which some kind of animal, okay, which you are not familiar about, then you are presented with that particular word. You won't be able to remember it until and unless you draw a meaning out of it, you analyze it, you know how it looks and what it does, everything you have to know. Then only it can get stored in your long-term memory. If I give you a random word now to remember, you don't know the meaning, you don't know how it looks, you don't know what it is, then it's not going to get stored in your long-term memory. Okay, so memory is an outcome of the manner in which information is encoded initially, and it has an important implication for learning. Okay, so this view of memory will help you realize that while you are learning a new lesson, you must focus on elaborating the meaning of its contents in as much detail as possible, and must not depend on rote memorization. So it is always been told that you have to understand, analyze meaning of whatever you are studying or reading. Okay, if you are just memorizing it, then you are going to forget it in long term. Okay, you just may mug it up, you may memorize it, then tomorrow maybe you might just forget. Okay, this happens quite often. Some people, they will just memorize it and they will go blank the next day. Why does it happen? Because you never focused on drawing on analyzing the meaning. Okay, you didn't understand the concept, you were just trying to memorize it. So you do not have to focus on rote memorization, but you have to um, encode the information semantically. Okay, you have to do the deepest level of processing here, then only you are going to remember it later on. Okay, so now in the next slide, let us study about types of long-term memory. Now let us look at types of long-term memory. So one major classification within the LTM is that of declarative and procedural, sometimes also called non-declarative memories. Okay, so all information pertaining to facts, names, dates such as rickshaw has three wheels, or that India became independent on August 15, 1947, or a frog is an amphibian, or you and your friend share the same name, are part of your declarative memory. So something which establishes facts, names, okay, all those comes under your declarative memory. They are declaring something. What is your name, or your name is the same with your friend, or the name of a frog, type of a frog. So all these are your declarative memory, facts, names, okay, things like that comes under your declarative memory. While procedural memory, on the other hand, refers to memories relating to procedures for accomplishing various tasks and skills, such as how to ride a bicycle, or how to make a tea, or play basketball. So certain memories which requires you to remember a particular procedure, like driving a car or riding a bicycle. So this is the whole procedure. Okay, so these kind of memory is known as your procedural memory. Okay, so facts are retained in the declarative memory, and they are amenable to verbal descriptions, while contents of procedural memory cannot be described easily. Okay, so now if I ask you, when did India got its independence, you will be able to tell me very easily. Okay, you will tell me 1947. Okay, so it's easy for you. 15 August 1947, you will tell me. But if I ask you, like how to ride a bicycle, then you will have to think about it, and it is going to be a bit difficult for you to narrate it. Okay. Now again, there is another classification. Talving has proposed this classification. So he has suggested that declarative memory can either be episodic or semantic. So again, declarative memory has been classified into two. That is episodic memory and your semantic memory. Okay, so episodic memory contains biographical details of our lives. So, what are biographical details? Memories relating to our personal life experience constitute the episodic memory, and it is for this reason that its contents are generally emotional in nature. Okay, so now, for example, if you are missing someone, you are remembering someone, and you are feeling very emotional, that is your episodic memory popping up. Okay, you are missing someone, you're feeling someone's absence, so that is your episodic memory popping up. So it can also be pleasant. Okay, like the first award that you got in your life and you are very happy. If you are thinking about it, that is also your episodic memory. Or you are angry at your friend who did not fulfill some promise, and you are feeling upset, that is also episodic memory. Okay, and uh, you will be able to answer these questions with reasonable accuracy. Okay, so we do not forget such things. Some emotional memories are there which we do not forget easily. They are hard to forget. Okay, so these comes under your episodic memory. So and there is one interesting fact is that uh, painful and unpleasant experiences are not remembered in much details as pleasant life experiences. Okay, so there are certain things which we want to not remember. Okay, like painful experiences, so we do not remember it in very much details. But on the other hand, if there is some very pleasant experience, like when you were 5 years old and you went to this picnic and the picnic spot was really nice, you played a lot of games, so those kind of memories you tend to remember it in details. Okay, but on the other hand, if it was painful, then you tend to forget it more. Okay, so these are the kinds of types of long-term memory. Now we will learn about more classifications of long-term memory. You can check box 7.2. I have also attached it in the next slide, so we will be reading about it. So there are some other kinds of memories as well. So let us look at them. So let us first look at flashbulb memories. So these are memories of events that are very arousing or surprising. Such memories are very detailed. They are like a photo taken with an advanced model camera. You can push the button and after 1 minute you have a recreation of the scene. You can look at the photograph whenever you want. Flashbulb memories are like images frozen in memory and tied to particular places, dates and times. Perhaps people put in greater effort in the formation of these memories, and highlighting details might lead to deeper levels of processing as after more cues for retrieval. So now think about some event, okay, some event or some traumatic event, or it can be some pleasant event as well. Suppose it's someone's wedding day. So after years also that person will remember that particular day in details. Okay, this at this point of time the groom came, or I was wearing this dress and it had these kind of details. Then this happened. Then all those things in details that person is going to remember. Okay, and some traumatic events like the 9/11 attack in America, if someone was there, if that person was present there. So those kind of memories also will be like a photograph. Okay, so they will remember it in very much detail. So these are known as your flashbulb memories. Now let us look at autobiographical memory. So these are personal memories. They are not distributed evenly throughout our lives. Some periods in our lives produce more memories than others. For instance, no memories are reported pertaining to early childhood, particularly during the first 4 to 5 years. This is called childhood amnesia. There is dramatic increase in the frequency of memories just after early adulthood, that is the 20s. Uh, Perhaps emotionally novelty and importance of events contribute to it. During old age, the most recent years of life are likely to be well remembered. However, before this, around 30 years of age, decline in certain kinds of memory starts. Okay. So what happens is that there are certain periods in our lives where we make more memories, but there are certain other times in our life where we do not make a lot of memories. For example, till 4 to 5 years, we suffer from childhood amnesia. We will not really remember what happened when we were a year old or 2 years old. Okay, so we do not remember these kind of memories. So this period is known as a period of childhood amnesia. And once you grow up, after a certain age, like your adulthood, just after your early adulthood, that is in your 20s, okay, you will make more memories, you will remember things more, okay, but after the age of 30, the decline in memory starts happening, okay, and when you are old, you will remember the recent memories very well, but those older memories, it gets lost. Now, let's talk about implicit memory. So, recent studies have indicated that many of the memories remain outside the conscious awareness of a person. So, there are certain things that we do not remember consciously, but unconsciously you do remember. So, how? Let us look at it. So, implicit memory is a kind of memory that a person is not aware of. It is a memory that is retrieved automatically. One interesting example of implicit memory comes from the experience of typing. If someone knows typing, that means he or she also knows the particular letters on the keyboard. But many typists cannot correctly label blank keys in a drawing of a keyboard. Implicit memory lies outside the boundaries of awareness. Now let us take this example in your lives only, okay? So think about your laptop, okay? So sometimes without saying also we type the letters, don't we? We do, right? Without even looking it, we will just type the letters because we are unconsciously aware that this letter is here and this letter is there. But again, what will happen is that suppose if those letters are removed, okay, and you are asked to name that in this place which letter was there, then you won't be able to remember it, okay, because you are not consciously aware about those letters. But while you are typing, it is there in your implicit memory, so automatically you are just typing it, okay, so that is your implicit memory. So implicit memories lie outside the boundaries of awareness. In other words, we are not conscious of the fact that a memory or record of a given experience exists, okay, so we have the memory but we are not consciously aware about it, okay. uh, if you take the example of keyboard, okay, so while you are typing, then without looking also you can type, but if you are asked to label the missing letters, then you won't be able to label it because you are not consciously aware about it, but unconsciously you are aware about it, okay, so it is stored in your implicit memory. This kind of memory was found in patients suffering from brain injuries. They were presented a list of common words. A few minutes later, the patient was asked to recall words from the list. No memory was shown for the words, okay, when they were asked about the words. However, when he or she was prompted to say a word that begins with these letters and two letters are given, the patient was able to recall the words, okay. So when they were just asked about the letters of the list, then they were not able to recall it, but when they were given some hints, then they were able to recall the words, okay. So implicit memories are also observed in people with normal memories. Sometimes it happens with us also, okay. Sometimes we do not remember things, but when we are prompted, when we are given hints, then we are able to remember it. So we are not consciously aware about those particular memories, but uh, it is there it is stored in our implicit memory. Okay, so these are the type of memory classification. Okay, that's all for today's class. If you have any doubt or confusion, you can ask me. Thank you and have a nice day ahead.